This is The Journey is Real, and I'm CJ Peterson, where we talk to real people with real passions to share a real portion of their heart. Today, my guest is Ashley Connor. Ashley Connor is a children's ministry, head of children's ministry, actually, for Summit Heights Fellowship. Hi, Ashley. Thank you so much. I know your time is valuable, so we appreciate you coming on.
My pleasure.
Like I said, you are the children's minister, kind of head of children's ministry for Summit Heights Church. How long have you been in children's ministry?
It's been around 16 years, and
Wow.
I know, a long time. It doesn't seem that long, but 16 years ago, we just came out to the Holly Lake area to help somebody out, and then one thing led to another, and so 16 years, and this is how long I've been in here. So.
Gotcha. Summit Heights Fellowship is located in Hawkins, Texas. And so I want to let other people know that who are listening. How did your journey start? Because I read a post on Facebook that said it started with like 3 kids in a house. So kind of take us back there and kind of slowly walk us through it.
Okay, so at the time that all of this kind of came around, Jake and I had just gotten married. I was in school, going in college, going to get my degree in education. And I was also working at like a preschool. And so juggling, just getting married, doing preschool, trying to finish a college degree. I knew that kids were my passion from the time I was really, really young, and hadn't really nailed down what exactly that was going to look like. Was that just that I was going to be a mom, or was I going to have a career with kids? And I really thought teaching, probably more than anything, was just kind of the avenue that if you like kids, you go teach. And so that's what I was pursuing my degree in. We were both very active in a church in Longview that I served at their children's ministry, and Jake would come in sometimes, but he had only been saved for maybe a year, and was really growing, and a lot of people saw potential in him and a calling and stuff like that. And so my youth pastor that I had grown up with from the time that I was in youth ministry, he now was not in youth ministry and was doing like traveling evangelism type stuff. And one day he was having a conversation with some people from Holly Lake in a golf course, and they were talking about how the Holly Lake Hawkins community really needed more of a church that wasn't so traditional, and that they felt like there was a real need to really reach the unchurched. And so anyways, they had conversations, and I always went over to his house. We hung out with him all the time. And so he was saying, that he was going to go over there and talk to some of these families or whatever. And a couple of them had some kids, and would I go over there and basically babysit. And so, sure, Jake was really interested, just because he was really interested in how ministry worked, and he was all about, sharing the gospel with people and that kind of stuff. So we went over there, and I took 3 kiddos in the back, and I had object lessons for them, and we did all kinds of stuff. It was like a 4-hour meeting. And at the time I had, I believe the kids were roughly like a 4-year-old, a 7-year-old, and like a 1-year-old. And so those were the kids that night. By the time we left, there was a plan to launch church. And it went really fast after that. I was very much set on, I really loved our church, and I had a passion for our church. I'm a very loyal person, and so I've really had a hard time thinking about leaving the place that I had always grown up in, and the people that I loved, and I mean, all of that. We were young and had no money, and it was just like, what in the world? And so
it was a big step.
That was a really big step. And so we started, the church started, and I'm horrible at dates, just so everyone knows, so this probably don't need to be fact checked. My guess was right around the 2004. It was either 2003 or 2004 in March. We had our first church meeting. It was actually in Holly Lake at one of their buildings, and it was just a rent thing. And so those three kids are who we started with. Anyways, and so that's really how it started. We, for the longest time, years, drove from Longview to Holly Lake. Early on, it was just everybody just doing what they felt called to do. It was fun. It was exciting. You got to see new people come, and you just really start to see the church really start to gel and form, and the momentum. But at the same time, there were absolutely no funds. So everything was done with no budget, it was very challenging.
And you guys didn't even have the funds to go in because you were just married and just starting. And
we had no building, we had no resources. It was very challenging. Everything that we used, eventually I remember getting like a closet in the Holly Hall that we used that had like a Rubbermaid like little storage thing, and that was like children's ministry in a box. And I mean, I was very, very young, had never done anything like that before. And so, basically from the ground up, I didn't, at that time you had the internet, but it wasn't like it is today. And so almost everything was from scratch. I mean, we couldn't afford to pay for curriculum or anything like that. So everything.
So take us fast forward up into where you guys are in the building you're currently in, and how it is morphed from the three children to.
Yeah, so there's been a lot of transition, a lot of steps. We started with 2 buildings at Holly Lake, and then the children outgrew that, and the building that the children were originally in just became the nursery kind of preschool area. And then the older kids moved up to the hall, which was just another long shot building. I mean, we were in a gated community, and super thankful for them to let us use that, but obviously that had its restrictions too. Nothing says come to church like a gate that says,
You have to check in.
So there were definitely challenges along the way. We were there, again, I'm not good at the numbers, but I probably around 2.5 years. And it was time. We were growing. The wear and tear and the challenges of getting people in and wanting to reach people who weren't just in Holly Lake, and not have people to sign in on lists, and all of those things that were challenges for us. And so then we moved locations to Hawkins Auditorium. Is where the big church was, the Hawkins ISD. So the adults were in the auditorium, and I had 3 classrooms that were obviously high school classrooms that were used for kids during the week. And we had a nursery with like regular desk, and it's geared for
some maneuvered little ones around desks.
17, 18-year-olds. And so, changing tables were 3 desks put together with a mat on top. And it had its challenges, but it was awesome. And we're super, super grateful. It definitely took away the having to call in to come. We were able to add a lot of people to that. There was still a lot of setup. We had a trailer that had to be brought in. Roughly, it took 2.5 hours, sometimes more, just to get set up for a Sunday morning.
Goodness.
That was a big challenge. Once we outgrew the 3 classrooms, and then we moved, the older kids moved into the library. And so it's just always been, from the beginning, there were always challenges. And so you always had to think outside of the box. You always had to be creative with funds. You always, we never really reached the church people. We always reached the unchurched. So you never made assumptions about people knowing anything. And so it was very different from what I grew up in. Home church that I came from, most of those kids grew up in homes where
they have stories all the way through, and
said a name of a Bible character and I go, oh yeah, I knew that. They came in with their Bibles. I mean, it was just very, very different. And so a lot of the things that most churches did, we didn't have the building to do that. I mean, we couldn't run a VBS in the middle of the week because we had no building to run in the middle of the
Mhm.
week. I mean, it's just we just had to get really creative. So then if I remember right, we were at the school for around 2 years. And then we moved to the location that we are at now, which was a hardware store. And it was just a big open building. We had very, very, again, still did not have much money. Um, but
So
we're
where's it located at now?
in Hawkins on 2869. It's not in the city of Hawkins. It's actually closer to Holly Lake Ranch,
Mhm.
which if you could have two polar opposite communities, they're pretty polar opposite. Hawkins is, for the most part, a very poor community, a community that is just hard, blue collar workers. Um, it's a small town, whereas Holly Lake Ranch is retired people, a lot of them from the Metroplex. A lot of them have had successful careers, and so it's just two totally different communities, but it has meshed really well for us. And so that it's actually, the church is actually closer to Holly Lake than it is to Hawkins, so we have a Hawkins address. And so we got this hardware store,
Mhm.
and um, literally probably had enough to buy the hardware store. It wasn't a whole lot of funds to like come in and renovate it. So the people of the church renovated, and some knowing what they were doing and some not. And
Which posed its own challenges.
we had walls and rooms. And so at the time that was renovated, the building was just a big open metal building, and we were able to create a foyer area, a sanctuary, and a very small kids area. It had a small little auditorium where the kindergarten through fifth were, and then we had two preschool classes. And so basically the nursery to 2 year olds were in one class and the 3 to 5 year olds were in another. And we've done two renovations since then. One added on what we call the Generations Auditorium, which is a larger auditorium, but still smaller than our main sanctuary auditorium, that has small group rooms cut out in it. And so for the time being, at that time, it was going to be youth using that on Wednesday nights and students and children using it on Sunday mornings. It gets used for so much stuff. I can't even keep up with how much that is by far the most used area in the building. With the stage, you can run a full band in there. It has concrete floors. There's no permanent seating, so it can all be moved around. You have small group cutout rooms, so if you need to break up, it's easy to do that. And then the next phase that we did added a large back hallway, which put in all what we call the A rooms, and those are the adult small group rooms.
Mhm.
And so that has, small groups meeting, prayer teams meeting, Bible studies meeting. I mean, all kinds of different ways that those rooms are used.
Mhm.
Um, our we added on a new office for the senior pastor. We've had some renovations, renovated the parking lot in the back. It's just been a gradual renovation process. At any time, I mean, like if you look at it now, you just think, how did we come from? And like we're still not a loaded church because we're not really reaching a demographic of people who have a lot of funds, but yet we've continued to be able to meet budget, continue to be able to improve our facilities and provide ministries that are really reaching our community. So it's been a very neat process to be a part of, and just be in awe of really what God has done, because there's no explanation for just the average Joes of us that are on staff that any of that could have happened.
Okay, so you started off in the back room with 3 kids. What does your children's ministry look like now? I know
It's
it's the polar opposite effect, but explain to those that are listening what it looks like now.
it over the years it's influxes, and we've seen a rise in numbers in certain areas and lower numbers in certain areas. Right now, our we run 2 services. And so we have a 9 o'clock service, which is a little bit smaller, um, mainly because people with kids, kindergarten through 5th grade, they're worn out from a weekend. And so some of our families come at 9 o'clock. The preschool area seems to get more families because those kiddos rise up early. But our 11 o'clock service is a little bit fuller. And then we're able to we started, I believe we're at 10 years, 12, maybe 12 years of doing a program called Kid Venture Live. And so where a lot of churches do VBS in the summer, we run Kid Venture Live. So
And it isn't this little calm Sunday school type VBS either. It's huge.
it's very high energy. Early on, I wanted, which is how we got the name Kid Venture. I wanted our kids to come and feel like they had an adventure with the Lord. They felt like it was something that they wanted to come to. It's something they were excited to come to, that we leveraged creativity for the sake of being able to teach them the gospel. And so, like I said, a lot of the kids that we get are not church. They maybe have a negative connotation with church. Maybe they are nervous about church. They've never been before. They think it's you come sit, you be quiet. And so we've really turned all of that stuff upside down. To find out what kids are interested in, how we can get in their world, how we can, again, leverage creativity. We do lots of really creative, fun things to get kids to where they're interested and kind of use that as the hook to be able to share the gospel. And so, right. Adventure Live is, I always say it's like PBS on steroids. It's pretty crazy, but it's something that we usually are around the 200 mark for KVL. And while, for a mega church, that's nothing. You're talking about a town with a population of 1,500 people. So, that's a pretty big deal for the kids in our area. And then we've added, since the beginning, we've added preteen camp. And so my first year that we went to preteen camp, we had, I took one boy and one girl to camp. And we had to team up with another church. As obviously you don't get your own cabin with one girl.
Yeah, no.
At this point, we took 87 kids to preteen camp, and the only go to camp are 3rd through 5th grade. So I'm only taking 3 grades to camp. Whereas, some of other camp ministries may take 6 or 7 kids, like a high school, like a youth ministry takes like seven grade levels. So we're only taking 3. We had 87 go to camp. We had to have 4 full cabins to be able to house our kids. We were the largest church at camp. And so it's very humbling to watch and just see what the Lord has done in really a community that a lot of people would say you can't pull off children's ministry on a large scale, or there's no way you can reach that many kids. You'd be lucky to have 10 kids or whatever. And so we've and it's not about numbers for me. It's about really impacting kids' lives and letting them know that they are valuable. Somebody knows their name, somebody knows their story, somebody wants to enter into their life and have a relationship with them. The old saying of like, nobody cares what you have to say until they know that you care. And so we've really bought into that. And so everything is created from the opening time to the end in every venue that we do to really create relationships with kids to where they're confident that somebody cares about them and that somebody loves them, somebody wants to know their story. They can be real. They don't have to pretend. They don't have to give the church answers. We give them safe spaces to really explore those things and not push it, which, may be different from other ministries. I have been super careful that we have not manipulated decisions and those kinds of things. We just want to let the Holy Spirit work and lay those things out and then let kids wrestle with it, not put pressure in that situation. So
now there's a couple of things I want to point out. I do know that you guys do background checks on the people that work with your children, and so I applaud you on that. Have there been any stories through the years that have just gotten a hold of your heart and you just haven't been able to let them go, and they just sink in and they keep you going and keep pushing you forward?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, there's a lot of personal stories with kids that you've just seen struggle, whether it be a family situation or whether it be that, they're just struggling in their own walk. And so I can look back at certain kids and maybe for the average person, they were counted out, but to watch them really, really grow and really succeed. Even as you see them as adults. I mean, I'm sure this one child wouldn't mind, but I mean, I had one kid who was terrified from the time she was super, super young. Fear was always something that crippled her, and was always something that, she would say, I want to do these things or whatever, but fear was something that crippled her. And to watch her now, she's gone to camp with me. She's gone on a mission trip. She's got on an airplane. She's done those things. Those were things that before were never a possibility. I mean, when I can think of a time a couple of years ago that we went to preteen camp, and a lot of the kids that we take to camp can't afford to go to camp. It's not a priority necessarily for their families. Maybe their families can't afford it. Maybe their families aren't really even interested in the things of the Lord. But our goal is to get as many kids on that bus as we can, for the hope that one, they have a great week, whether it be spiritual or not, that they have a great week. And if they have a hard home life, that they've got a week that they don't have to worry about that.
Right.
But two, we can leverage the spiritual, and we can share that with them. And so I remember a couple of years ago, we had a boy who just super, super tough life. If you could write a sad story, I mean, he definitely had it. Didn't have the funds to go. We do fundraisers, and I mean, we're not going to let a kid not get on the bus. And so he went, and we passed through Tyler on the way to camp, and he said, I've never left. I've never been anywhere further than Tyler. And so,
Wow.
I mean, that was exciting. So on the way there, I was like, man, this is going to be a great week for him. And then as soon as he got off the bus at camp, which the camp that we go to is very outdoorsy, woodsy. It's not like you're going to New York City. But for him, it was a huge deal. I mean, when we drive in, we go by the pool, and we go by the swing and the zip line. And I mean, tears just started like streaming down his. When he got off the bus, he kissed the ground. He was like, this has to be what heaven on earth is like. And I was just like, oh, like for him, that was a big, big deal. And so I think, when you hear stories like that, or you see those things, you're like, okay, that while it's camp and you can shrug it off as like, that's just camp. But I know that he'll always look back, no matter where he's at, no matter if he stays in this area or what, that was a positive point in his life. That was something that when he looks back at who God is, he's going to think something's going to go with a positive view of who God is because of that. And so that's my goal, is to lay those foundations in our ministry to where when those kids are adults and they're telling stories, they don't have a negative view of who God is or of who church is. It was something that they can look back and have positive, and they can learn just some basic truths like, God loves me. He wants to be my friend. He cares. He genuinely cares about me, and he has a plan for me. Those things. And so those are, I think, the most, like, I could look back and say, oh, it was when we had this many kids show up to this or whatever. But to me, it's not about the numbers. It's about the life change, and even like little life change. I mean, when you see kids that used to be in Kid Venture as a 6-7-year-old and now they're serving as small group leaders, that's, to me, that's impactful. That those are the things that that I guess keep me going. Those are the things that to me are the win. When we had a kiddo a couple of weeks ago who just was really struggling with anxiety and nervousness, and just wanting to be really introverted and not be around people, not understanding why she was crying all the time. It's just like, just so many things that, if we're all honest, most of our kids, or we see it in our kids in this generation a lot. And to watch another small group leader be able to say, it's okay. You don't have to put on a mask when you come in here. You don't have to act like everything's okay when it's not. You can be honest. And so to watch them connect, and then for that child to go home and tell her parent what the impact was, and that parent to say, this is why this church is different, because my kid can be real, and then somebody can love on them where they're at. So those are the wins for me. Even like Sunday, I have one kid that's just a challenge. I haven't been able to meet his need of really how to engage him. Like, I'm just still trying to learn, like, how do I reach him? And not that he is having a bad time, but like, I just, you feel like I'm just not there yet. I haven't gotten it. And we allow our kids to do everything back in Kid Venture. I mean, they pretty much run the service. And so I had asked him if he wanted to do the computer and run the computer and the soundboard. And so one of my leaders was back there helping him. And like, the pride when he left was just, I mean, he like wrote me this little thank you card and was just like, he's like, I just can't believe that I had that much value. Like, I was a part of something. And so like, those are the wins for me, not what I guess some people would perceive as a win that you can write it down on a piece of paper. And,
Your success, to you, success is in the heart. It's not in the numbers. And that's one of the things I love about it. For those interested in learning more about your student ministry, where can they find you online?
So our church has a website. It's called summitheightsfellowship.com.
Can you spell that out for those listening?
And so it's SUMMITHEIGHTS fellowship, FELLOWSHIP.com. And when you click on there, you can click on children. And then the first, section is just all about the children's ministry and what to expect, what our vision is, like you were talking about, the background checks, what our volunteers have to go through, how what a typical service looks like, what check-in looks like. I mean, all of those things. And then there's a section for preteen camp that talks about all things preteen camp. There's a section for Kid Venture Live, which is our summer program. And so there's lots of good resources on there. It gives you an overview of the month and what we're teaching and those kinds of things. But go ahead. Sorry.
You guys do a phenomenal job on reaching kids at their core. So I want to praise you for that. And thank you for giving your heart to children and children's ministry. We also want to thank you so much for your time. We have about 2 minutes left. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I will say that like early on in ministry, when we first started, because we didn't have people, I was very much a lone ranger. I did a lot of the writing. I was taught every day. And as the ministry has grown, and as I've learned and grown as a leader, I've learned that you're only as strong as your team. And so over the years, the Kid Venture team, my opinion is they're the best team at Summit. They put in the work. They rarely get the recognition that that they deserve. A lot of times nobody has any idea what they go through on a Sunday morning, and those people really make the difference, because there's no possible way that I can connect with kids that come in to Kid Venture. And so just that one-on-one time, which is why we focus so much on small groups, is so that we can have a small group of kids with a leader, 5 to 7 kiddos, to where you can really get to know who those kids are and what their struggles are, what matters to them, what they're scared of, what their fears are, what they want to be when they grow up, what their questions are about who God is. And so I think small group ministry and our small group leaders is what makes Kid Venture, to me, is what makes it successful.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much, like I said, for your time, because I know that your schedule is jam-packed. And I know that you have a lot that goes on. So I appreciate, you giving us of your time. And I wanted to thank you for that. Thank you, Ashley, for joining us. Again, you can find them at www.summitheightsfellowship.com under Children's Ministry. And I want to thank you for listening to The Journey is Real, where we talk to real people with real passions who share a real portion of the heart. I'm CJ Peterson of cjpetersonwrites.com. Thank you, and until next time.